All right, we are live once again within their own words live, this time coming from the city of Baltimore. I have a very distinguished panel here with all these wonderful gentlemen and a beautiful lady known as Danny, my co host. And without further ado, let's get into it. First off, I want you to introduce yourself and give us a little bit about who you are. We'll start with Terry Thompson.
Hello, people. Happy holidays. Everything started for me back in Chicago in 1976, freshman year. That's when disco kind of came out. By 1977, I ended up DJing with a friend of mine in high school at this VFW. He kind of rented it out, and there was two turntables in the receiver with two channels. So I was going back and forth with him, and we kind of did that party. Fast forward to 1981, 82, I was out in California, living there for 2 years, DJing. A lot of my friends from high school moved out there, so I ended up playing in or doing some DJ audition and everything. Got some club gigs and everything. So that went on for 2 years, and I moved to Hawaii, and that's where I really got started as a resident DJ at a lot of different venues over there for 4 or 5 years. And then I ended up getting stationed back in Maryland, in Baltimore. So right at the height of house music. And I ended up DJing here in Baltimore since 1987, doing different parties, hanging out with all the DJs on this panel and everything over the years, doing parties in Baltimore and actually in Miami as well. So that's pretty much been my history, going on 40 years now, pretty much, behind the turntables.
All right. Next we have Teddy Douglas. Unmute your mic.
My mic, I forgot about that.
Don't forget about that.
So I'm Teddy Douglas, and I'm co-founder of Basement Boys Records, Basement Boys Productions, and I began my career in 1986. We had a record on this compilation called "Welcome to the Club," and Cynthia Cherry, she just noticed something that was magical about what we were doing, and she signed us. And from that point on, we started working with artists because I did the lead vocals on the first song, "Love Don't Live Here," and I just said, "Nah, that's not gonna happen." So we started looking for artists to work with, and we started working with Alternate Tay and Mass Order and Crystal Waters, and we started to build a career, and we started a production company, and the rest is history, pretty much.
Nice and brief. We love that.
All right.
All right. Next up, we have Michael Joyner. You unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Mike. We can't hear you. Unmute
How's
yourself.
that? Okay.
There you go.
My love for DJing started in 1976, actually. Uh, my brother was an artist, and when he would paint, I would watch him paint, and he would play disco songs. And it's amazing how, as a child, if music is played around your house, it kind of penetrates the soul of a child. And normally that's the route that you go through in life, is dealing with some type of music. So my love for music started then. I started DJing, and my mother used to have this little record player with the TV in the middle of the console, and there's one turntable, and I would put one record on that, and would just be putting the needle back, keep putting the needle back as if I had two of them, and then I would envision having two turntables by just having that one turntable there on that console. And then I got a paper route when I was 9 years old. Then I started buying 45s, and then started buying records. And I started playing music for the kids with my little record player on my porch. And by playing certain songs and seeing the reaction that the kids would take to me playing the music, I knew that's what I wanted to do for a career. So from there, I started doing backyard parties, school dances. And in 1986, is when I met Teddy, Tommy, and Jay Steinhauer at a bar club called Club Hats, and we DJed. But probably close to a year there, and then from there went to Club Fantasies. Club Fantasies is where I started my main residency at Fame Club Fantasies, and I was there from 1987 to 1991. And from there, Paradox opened up, and I DJed at Paradox from around 1992 to 1994. So basically, that's my career in DJing, and you know, I'm still doing it today.
All right. Next up, we have on the hands-on radio man, DJ Chuck. We can't hear you, Chuck. We can't hear you,
Chuck,
Chuck. All right, let's go to Chip real quick. Chip.
I'll hop in. I grew up playing the drums in Baltimore, and at a very young age, started to get into the clubs. We went to all the teen nights, and I realized that the teen nights were not the nights that I wanted to be. So I started to beg the owners to let me in on the other nights, and fell in love with the club music and the house music that was being played, all while I was playing percussion day and night. This was, I guess, 1990, 91 is when I started to make music. And then in 1992, I finally figured out how to take that whole room full of clunky synthesizers and drum machines and coax some music out of it, made my first record. No, made my first tracks, I should say, and was lucky enough to have them pressed onto a record. And from there, it kind of went on. But for me, it's always been this way of playing the percussion, and I didn't want to be in bands. I didn't want to do any of the things that everybody else was doing. I really wanted to make this music. My mother used to drive me before I could drive to 12-inch dance records in DC, and I would buy all of the house music, and the guys would take care of me and put things aside because it was so ridiculous to have this little kid coming in there. And from then it just kind of pushed on. And I'll never forget Wayne giving me the opportunity to come into the Paradox on the other nights when it wasn't the Crazy Fever nights. And just, I've tried to be a little bit of a chameleon of sorts, I guess, because I like all the different types of dance music that are out there, but it's all been based in that, that driving, amazing thing that everyone on this this call is able to do to a dance floor and pull those people together and make that magic happen in a room. And once you taste that and feel that, you just kind of chase it for the rest of your life. So I'm still chasing that sort of religious moment that happens on the dance floor with everybody. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. We want to get a good snapshot of Baltimore. We've done, I think you guys are the first city that we've done on the East Coast. So that's a good thing. You get to
Jesse, let's see if Chuck can unmute himself and do his intro.
Yeah. Chuck, you there? No, we still can't hear you. You might need to sign yourself out and come back in. All right. So we're going to get into this first question, which is where and when did, I'm not talking house music yet. When did the scene, the underground scene, the clubs, the disco scene, everything, when did that start happening in Baltimore, and who is the OG that was there in the beginning?
Yes, who's the OG in the room?
Anybody can take that. Teddy, you got to unmute yourself if you're talking.
I'm the OG in the room right now, but the OG in Baltimore, the OG in Baltimore is undoubtedly Wayne Davis.
All right. Yeah, we were trying to get Wayne here.
Yeah, I spoke to him. He just couldn't do it. He just couldn't pull it together. I spoke to him. We were together. That's my best friend. So we were together. He just couldn't make it.
Okay, so you're gonna have to talk for him. You're gonna have to talk for him then.
I'll talk to him. I'll talk to him.
I mean, you got to talk for him now. Since he's the OG, what did he do back in those days? What was his motivation? How did he make things happen and break ground?
Well, Wayne was the first guy to introduce the concept of putting two records together here in Baltimore. I mean, he was the first guy that I heard to do that, you know. And I was a kid around, like, maybe I was like 17. And Wayne, he was the resident DJ of a club called Carousel at first, and he moved to Odell Brock opened up a club on North Avenue called Odell's, and he was the resident DJ. Wayne pioneered the concept of a seamless night, because before that, you know, it was like Mike said, we take one record, you know, house parties were one record at a time. But Wayne pioneered the seamless a set in here in Baltimore. Because I was a kid, I used to go to Odell's, but I had no business being in there.
What year
Yeah,
was that? What year are we talking? What year are we talking?
That would have to be 81, around when the first time I went to Odell's, around 1981.
Okay.
But it went on for, I mean, a decade. We were going to Odell's still in '90 when I went there. I mean, it was.
No, I was going. Yeah, so I was there before. It was 3 remodels. The first remodel I was too young to go, but the second one was the pit. They call it the pits, where it was sunken low and had these big giant subwoofers on each, like in a lane. And Wayne was like in a like Studio 54 up in a like a little circle booth. And I was about 17 or whatever, but at first, you know, you couldn't get in the club if there was this one lady. Her name was Jackie. She was on the door, and she wouldn't let you in if you didn't have the right clothes on, if you didn't look right, if she was in a certain mood. It was and it made the club kind of special. You know, you didn't know whether you was going to get robbed there. You didn't know whether you was going to get in or not. It was crazy.
Right. Okay. Go ahead, Danny.
All right, let me unmute oh, you unmuted me. Thank you so much. So when did you discover house music, Teddy? Was it that year that you were 17, or were you hearing it prior to that and you had to wait to get in?
No, there was no such thing as house music when I was 17. There was no such thing.
So we're talking disco?
We're talking dance music, which is called club music or dance music. There was no such thing as house music.
Okay.
Yeah, the Prelude, we were playing all types of, and Wayne Davis at Odell played, his set was eclectic because he played Italian imports, he played like B-52s, he would play Kraftwerk, and he would play all, like, it would mix in with disco, but mainly Prelude records and Salsoul records and Philadelphia International records, and anything that you could dance to was danceable. Kind of like what the Paradise Garage was doing with Larry Levan. Kind of like the same thing where we kind of like lost that today. I mean, the dance floor is kind of either Afro house or this way or that way, or you know. But when I was growing up, the DJs that I revered they were playing. If you could dance to it, they played it. You know,
yeah.
It was that's what Wayne was about.
Yeah, that's real music back then. You didn't have to separate the genres. It was just whatever you felt like dancing to. That was it.
If it was danceable, you could play it, you know?
That's right.
I dig that. When would we say that house music was first identified as a subgenre in Baltimore? Anyone?
I would say when I came here in '86, and I got a playlist from the record pool in Hawaii, and it had a list of all the track shows that were going on, and I saw that Odell's had like Billy that was booked there, a couple other artists that were like really big in '84, '85. So I think you guys were there right from the beginning, and when I came in here, it was full on. It was like house music was going on at Odell's. It was going on at Last Stop. It was going on at the Signal, and so I would say since the beginning, and then all the record stores had all the records, so the house records. So it was like you guys were pretty much right in line with everybody else. as far as like getting music first, right?
Well, I worked in a record store actually around that same time, which made it kind of unique for me because I worked at this great record store called Music Liberated, and we saw these records come in, and we were like, "What the hell is these records coming out of Chicago?" Yeah, some of them only had like a hand clap and a beat, like, what's going on? I mean, and I love New York. I love New York. You know, I love New York. But these records were different. These records were unique. The syncopation that came out of those records had were great to mix with those records that had live drummers because before that we didn't have that. It was amazing.
Yeah, they definitely were DJ tools. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, when I first saw them, I was like, "This is a DJ tool. Bridge this record."
Oh my god! And they didn't sound that great, but we didn't care. I mean, didn't matter. The records were like it started this whole. I mean, London, everywhere, everybody was going crazy over what the fuck is going on in Chicago. It really inspired me actually to do what we do. Actually, it inspired Basement Boys. It inspired all of us to do what we do.
I remember you on Fridays playing
and the counter.
a lot of the records on Fridays, Teddy. You were playing a lot of the Chicago stuff.
Yeah, I saw all those early records, Gwendolyn and those track, track percussions and all those.
Oh my God, Gwendolyn! Oh my God! I was on something when I did that record because that was totally different.
I'm telling you, man, those records were awesome, Jesse.
I think it's correct when Tori said 1986, Teddy. When we were at Club Hats, I started buying a lot of Chicago labeled records, but the sound was like acetate, so we had to always adjust the sound. It sounded like they were all recorded off a cassette, even though we were playing them on a record. So we had to do so much to EQ them to make them sound just the way we wanted them to sound. And it was funny, certain songs, so many songs coming out of Chicago, you go on and play them, but so many times. And then it's like, the sound would start to fade as if they were all acetates, And then when we got the fantasy, right. And like Teddy said, we called it house music. No, we called it club music, but then the younger kids took a hold of it and they called it house music, but they was playing more like a Baltimore sound. So we kind of figured we both can't call it club music. So around, I guess, 87 and 88, we then started adopting the house music, title for the music we were playing, because the younger kids grabbed a hold to it, and they were making these tracks that just didn't sound like, to us, club music. So then that's when the house music thing started to take over for us.
So I want to ask a question. I want to ask everybody individually, when did you personally discover house music? We'll start with Terry.
I left Aberdeen in 1983. Went back home in Chicago for a month or so. And I was listening to WBMX, and who was playing it? Either Frankie Knuckles had a mix, or I think it definitely wasn't the Hot Mix 5 guys. So anyway, they had one track going with Alexander Robotics, and it was that it had the loop of Summer's record, and it was the On and On bootleg, and that was my first experience in hearing just that version. And I think that was the beginning of the house music, where you had the DJs that were putting together stuff behind the scenes to bridge the records together. And then, as when '84 came around in the record pool, we started getting some records from Persia Records, whatever. That's
what record pool? What record pool were you?
Yeah, Hawaii record pool.
You were in Hawaii at that time.
Yeah.
So you're talking what year again did you first hear it?
I was over there. I was over there from '83 to '86. So I started getting records from that probably like in '84, '85.
So what was like the first record that you got that defined? Because I mean, being from Chicago, you knew what the sound was like already. So when you heard that change, though, when it became a Chicago thing as opposed to a disco thing, when was that? And what
Yes,
record was
in 1985, we got two records in the record pool, and that was "Jack Your Body" and it was either "It's Like That." It's Like That and "Jack Your Body." Those two came in the pool. The record we could play "Jack Your Body" in the club because that would kind of go in with a lot of stuff that we were already playing, but the "It's Like That" was a little bit too. Was too stripped down. It wasn't really fitting for any club formats in Hawaii at that time because there was we were playing a lot of Euro stuff, we were playing a lot of new wave stuff, and it really wasn't ready for it. But when I heard it, when I went back to Chicago between going to Baltimore, I really heard it the first time on a loud system in either the playground, not the playground, but the Powerhouse or AKA's, one of those two clubs.
Hey, did you ever come to the playground when I played?
No, my sister, she was going to the playground. I was over at the Nimbus in
Oh my God, yeah, the Nimbus.
yeah,
All right, what about you, Chip? When did you first discover house music?
I am a younger generation. I think probably one. I don't know, maybe a little bit more. For me, it was 1991 and Acid House. That was what really just grabbed me and it shook me.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough. I didn't have the pioneering kind of having to change it over from all of the the pop music and the disco and everything. It was thriving when I got to meet it, so to speak. So I would say 1991, kind of I guess it was the end of the Acid House thing, but really kind of the height. To me, I fell in love with all things Manchester and the UK, and really just started to pay attention and buy everything that I possibly could find from that world. And then all the guys in Baltimore. I mean, Teddy, 91, 92, you were making like hits at that point. So we had, that was music on the radio. When we talk about the Baltimore club thing, it was its own world, with these really heavy, crunchy break beats that, were coming out of the streets, and it was really like a hardcore sound. And house was a more of a like a gospel-based, heavier, bassy thing where everybody was there to dance, and it was killer. But I would say that 1991 was when it really kind of took over my whole life and changed me.
All right. Well, I want to welcome DJ Pope, who just joined the broadcast. Give us introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you. Can you unmute your mic there? Or can we hear you? We can't hear you, Pope. All right, let's see if we can get Chuck yet. Chuck, you there? Oh, yes. All right. Let's go to Michael. When did you discover house music?
Okay. I discovered house music, I would say it was 1986. 1986 when I discovered house music. And it was at that little bar Hats when I started seeing these Chicago labeled songs were starting to come in. And I was very young, just out of high school. And I like I like the beat. I like how fast it, I like the tempo. And it was just a lot of great music, man, coming out of Chicago. And it was really moving the floor at the time when we were DJing. And it was 1986 when I discovered house music.
All right.
Yep.
Cool. Who's left? Pope, you there? Can you hear us yet? Can you speak? Still can't hear you. All right. All right, Danny.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're gonna have to go decade by decade for this one. But what were some of the other electronic music genres or subgenres that were part of the scene when house first emerged for each of you? Let's start with Terry.
Well, there were actually two things going on at the same time. You had the north side of Chicago um, had created this whole industrial sound, Ministry of Sound, and all those different labels were over at Wax Tracks. And so you had the industrial music going on, and then you had house music going on. So you really had two different groups. I really kind of considered the house music as being like black new wave. You know, for me, it was kind of like the black new wave early on, and
Yeah,
then
the punk out age.
yeah. Then it merged into, I would say, it merged into more of a New York sound as like we got towards the '90s and early '90s and stuff. It got more production that was sounding like old disco records in terms of having good intros, bridges, and things like that. I mean, you had some artists that were doing a lot of that too, like Tin City and so on. But for the most part, it went from a DJ tool that was created early on to actually putting together real solid records that can go across many dance floors. And so, but yeah, you did in the beginning of the house. You had the industrial artists and the guys that were doing more like the punk and wave stuff. They kind of merged into the industrial side of dance music, and so you had this kind of you know two different clubs that were being built. You know, you had the house club that were kind of being generated, and you had this like industrial place like in Baltimore, like the Depot. The Depot is a place that people were into like industrial music and stuff. Chip probably knows this. And when actually signals on Friday nights, that was like that new wave in the industrial night too. But behind Signal, you had Odell's pumping up the house music. So if you went into Odell's, you got tired of that, you go around the corner and go into Signal and get a little bit of that flavor.
Nice. How about you, Teddy?
Well, well, the disco music never went away, and for me, and for most DJs around that time when house was going on, disco actually, most of those house songs were imitating disco records.
Right.
So at that time, there was still the disco thing happening, of course, with the Philadelphia International, South Soul, whatever. But the Italian disco era was happening also around that time. With a lot of Italian disco, a lot of records coming from Italy, imports that created this movement. You had this little Italian disco thing that was a part of that whole scene as well.
Nice. So those are both 80s. Let's hop over to the 90s really quick. Chip, what other subgenres?
In the 90s, everything kind of opened up. Baltimore was right in line with the UK when the whole rave kind of techno thing took off. We always had multiple rooms in all the clubs. So you would have one floor that would be playing, house music. Then you would have that other floor that would be doing the, kind of harder, darker, post-industrial stuff. For me, I never understood why those people would want to go out and hear music that was so angry. I wanted to be happy and, be out and dancing and having a good time. So that stuff just never struck me. But I think, the 90s Baltimore exploded. We were having DJs come through from all over the country. And, it was really an amazing time because for whatever reason, the record stores and everybody, Music Liberated was like a place that you would just go and stand in line and beg at the counter. We had Modern Music. That was a place where, those white labels would come in and you would have to like get there early, pitch a tent, be ready, waiting and begging for those records to come out. And it was all being played that either that Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the different spots. But it's always been a mix. And, you've got Baltimore is a funky town. So there's always been this kind of like breakbeat funk, the Latin drums, the groove, the syncopation. So everybody would mix it all together in their sets. There's DJs like Charles Feelgood and Scott Henry who, took a rave crowd but then played all kinds of different music for them, would bring in people and kind of, teach these kids, thousands and thousands of them, about what else was out there. You know, the West Coast was a huge thing in the 90s too, where you had all the hippies that were out there making that really psychedelic, percussive house music, but it had break beats, and then it kind of came across when we would have those DJs play, and then everybody was on that tip. So as it was almost like when hits came out, they then became genres, you know, where the song was huge, but then there was like a whole genre that came out of it. It all sounded like it, you know, or all of the synths that came out. If that new synth sound came out, the Robin S, you know, the B3 or any of those, you had all of a sudden, it was this whole thing. So I think Baltimore's just always been this really eclectic mix of all different kinds of grooves, but it's all been based in that, you know, that house music dance floor mentality.
Right. So,
Nice.
Teddy, I want to ask you a question here. How in the world did you all ever come together to do that sound for Crystal? Because when I heard that, I was like, whoa, what is this, man? I was like, I don't even know where this is coming from. So what was that? What was going on in Baltimore with you guys at that time?
Wow, that was magical. Well, I got to give credit to the actual keyboard player, Neil Conway, because Neil Conway came with the riff, the bomb, bomb, bomb. That's Neil Conway. And Crystal wrote the song, and we came up with the track. Tommy and I, we were the creative concepts behind the production company. So Tommy and I would always come up with the rhythm tracks. And so the three of those combinations was what made Gypsy Woman. You know, Jay was basically the engineer, but Tommy and I came up with the beat. And Crystal wrote it, and she was in the booth, and she was singing when she got to the chorus, as she's standing there singing for money, la la dee, la la la, and then she stopped, and I was like, hold it, do that like 100 more times, like just keep saying, la dee, la la la, and then that's how that happened.
All right, man. That was interesting because I remember seeing the video on TV and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. There's a house video on TV? What's going on here?
But you know what, man? When In Living Color spoofed her, Crystal was not happy about that. She was sad. In Living Color was the hottest thing on TV around that time.
Right.
And when it came on and she had no talent and all that shit, oh man, she was destroyed. But you have to remember, they didn't spoof anybody that wasn't, you know,
Hot.
Right.
And
That was one of those songs that became a genre.
Yeah, I mean it was, and she lasted longer than Keenan. So I was like, so you know, you can't, you know, she makes a joke out of it in her show. You know, now it's funny now, but it wasn't funny back then.
I can imagine. It felt probably like a huge diss at the time, but you know, they say all publicity is good publicity, so it ends up being a really good thing.
Exactly.
If DJ Pope or Chuck have gotten their microphone situated and want to chime in, let's do that. Otherwise, I have another pressing question. It looks like DJ Pope is ready.
There we go. Oh my God, we got you. Oh, thank you.
What's up, bro?
Welcome.
Yeah. I apologize for that, man. I didn't even think I was gonna be able to make it. But what do I need to chime in on?
We're just going to start with a brief intro to the audience. Let them know who you are, a little bit about your career and accomplishments, and we'll go from there.
Name is Pope, Brian Pope, known as DJ Pope, originally from Chicago. Came to Baltimore in 87 to go to college. Was DJing in Chicago before I came here. Grew up on DJs like Jesse Saunders, my cousin Farley Keith, Frankie Knuckles. Used to party at the playground, at
Right now.
at Mendel, the edge of the looking glass, aka Coconuts. I mean, wherever.
Okay, we see you got your house music education. All right, you graduated.
I got my first break in DJing at a club called COD on the north side of Chicago at the age of 16. And then just like, you know, all of us have these stories when we finally got to play. Mine was after doing the high school night at COD. Frankie's Knuckles opening DJ didn't show up. So the owner saw me packing my crates up. You know, we used to have crates, and my mom's Lincoln Continental, and the place was packed, and there was no music. And he came back out and said, "Pope, can you stay for an hour and play?" And I'm like, "Oh hell yeah, I can play." So
about 7.
the place is packed, and I'm playing, and this is when we used to have the little edit cassettes, and they used to have a pitch control cassette deck in the booth. You know, I'm playing some of these edits, all you know, and the party jumping. I got the party moving, and then the next thing I know, I turn around, I look back, and Frankie's standing behind me, and I can hear him talking to the manager, like, who is this kid? And you know, the guy he says, Mike didn't show up. He said, well, where in the hell is Mike? And well, he didn't show, blah blah blah. And so, make a long story short, you know, I'm ready to get off the turntable, and I look back, and Frank said, no, go ahead and play. Go ahead and play. And so we played for another half an hour. And so when I finished playing, you know, before he got on, I asked him, I says, well, you know, how did I do? And he says, we did okay. We did okay. And so right then and there, I knew that this was for me. So I moved to Baltimore.
What year was that?
I left Chicago in '84, right after high school. So this was '83 when I was a junior in high school. So I left Chicago, came to Morgan State University, and I started a radio show on a jazz radio station, and I mimicked the show off of a show out of Chicago that used to be on a station called WNUR, and it was called the Freeform Show. And that was originally named my show on Morgan was called the Freeform Show, and then eventually it changed to the Underground Experience. Then I started producing music in '91. Met my partner OG in '93 when he came to Morgan, and we started a label called Poetry Records. Been making music ever since, and now we're here.
Yes, we are.
Beautiful. Thank you.
We are live within their own words live, and we are coming from the city of Baltimore. I had the privilege of actually being there. Actually, when I saw Terry, remember that back in 2008 when Obama was being elected, I wanted to be out there on the East Coast and close to it when it was happening. So I came out there, stayed for about a month, a little over a month, and checked it out. And here was Terry. You Jesse Saunders? Like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I remember that.
Very nice. So if we do 80s, 90s, 2000s, can we talk about some of the most memorable events from each of those decades for house music in general in Baltimore?
Who wants that?
In the 80s? You want to start with the 80s?
Yeah, let's start with the 80s. Yeah. If you have one from the 80s, one from the 90s, and one from the 2000s, by all means.
Well, definitely anything. Well, from the Odell's days, we got to talk about that. You know, for Odell's days, I think the Fly Girls and the Fly Guys night that was kind of like memorable. Teddy on Sunday nights at Fantasies was definitely hot. And then there's a little young guy that was playing on Saturday. I forgot his name. I think his name was Michael Joyner. Yeah, he was jamming. Yeah, that was a good night too. Yeah, so I would say those probably were the three things that kind of stuck with me as far as the 80s were concerned.
All right, anybody else care to share?
Can you hear me, Jesse?
Yeah, is that you, Chuck? Oh
yeah.
My God, we got you. All right.
My apologies, man. I was on my phone. I switched to my laptop.
Okay. That's much better. You sound great.
Let's start from the beginning then. Tell everybody who you are and why you're here.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Chuck. I own an online radio station for going on 18 years now, hands-on radio. But I kind of started my DJ journey. My dad was a DJ, so Always had the turntables around, but that was back in the days we didn't even have mixers and stuff. We used to have the little A and B toggles on the receiver to go back and forth between the turntables and all that. So he kind of taught me how to DJ like that. He used to hire me out to DJ weddings. This is back when you DJ the weddings, you would give the couple to 45, at the end of the wedding as a gift and all that. And I used to also DJ a lot of house parties in Baltimore, mainly hip hop parties. But my first real DJ gig in a club was a little club on Emerson Avenue called G&G's. My cousin owned it, and it was a bar downstairs, and upstairs they had a lounge and a dance floor. So that was my first paid, and I was like 14. We're talking, it was like 1987, something like that. But that was my first taste of controlling a crowd. These were grown folks, I'm 14 years old, but back then I wouldn't really call it house. There was a lot of stuff we called it club, like No Sarah, Expose, Covered Girls, Joyce Sims, that type of stuff. So play a lot of that. But just fast forward to college, you looking at these guys. I'm like the baby of the group, man. I used to study all these guys. I used to listen to Mike and Pope at Fantasies, Teddy at the Paradox. Just speaking of memorable '90s moments, that I remember the college night at the Paradox, man. I was a college kid at that time, so we was there at that night. So but eventually, I went to school in DC. I had a little radio show there at American University where I was doing like an hour house and then an hour hip hop. Then moved back to Baltimore, started to get familiarized with the house scene again here. It turned out DJ Biscuit, one of the DJs on Hands on Radio, was throwing a party right down the street from my house, Good Vibrations. Started going there, meeting everybody, and all the people I didn't get a chance to meet, because I was away at school. And then like 2003, I started Hands on Radio, and I was the only DJ on there. But the first DJ to join me was DJ Pope. And what me and Pope used to do, Pope had his show on Morgan, and I literally had the receiver plugged into my computer, and we were simulcasting Pope's house show all over the world. We're talking 2003. We were doing this. This is back when everybody was on Deep House page and all that. So everybody was listening to Pope play because Morgan didn't have internet radio streaming at the time. So it was only locally broadcast. So we were actually simulcasting it out, and the rest is history. Man, we got like 40 DJs on it now. So, but yeah.
Nice. Very nice. I love the station.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anyone else have memorable times they want to share regarding the scene from the 80s, 90s, or the double O's?
I have two. I have one
away,
from
Michael.
I have one from 1983, and one from 1988. 83 was going into Odell's, and Wayne Davis was playing Love Sensation. And he was mixing the end of the song, but he kept, like Teddy had said early on, how seamless, how he was running at the end of the song for 10 minutes. And the first thing I said is, when I get that song, I'm going to learn that mix. And I got those two songs. I learned how to seamless keep a song going without people even knowing that you're blending it, And so that was very memorable for me because, Wayne just used to do things that would just blow our minds. It was like an amusement park to go to Odell's. And the next one is 1988, when I would play from 12 to 7 in the morning. And keep in mind, those days, you were the only DJ. It wasn't no openers, wasn't no person coming in the middle. It was one DJ all night. But I would leave in the morning, and it would be people outside waiting for me outside, and we would all go to breakfast. So those breakfasts after the club, and you were up to 10 o'clock the next day. So that's was memorable for me, was going to breakfast after playing at the club.
That's beautiful. How about you, Pope, or what about Teddy?
For me,
You have a guest behind you, Danny.
Uh, Probably would be like this was the end of the 80s, early 90s when I got my first chance to DJ out of Baltimore. I played at the Sound Factory Bar doing the new music seminar when it used to be held in New York. And I got to play with first time I got to play on the same bill with Louis Vega. It was me, Louis Vega, Francois Kevorkian, um, another BLS DJ, and that was another memorable moment for me for the '90s.
So since the 90s, like almost 30 years, 25 to 30 years, you got any that are current?
Oh yeah.
Or did it end in the 90s? Because a lot of people say that the 2000s were nothing like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, they were nothing. I mean, nothing. I mean. Oh, my memories were theme parties when I was growing up. I mean, at Odell's used to have these parties called Dad to Bear, and they would lock the doors. And you couldn't get in or out after a certain time, and they would just go buck wild. I mean, whatever happened. I mean, and then there were beach parties where it was sand on the entire dance floor. The entire dance floor was sand. Those were some memorable parties at Odell's.
All right, I'm going to jump in here for a second because we've got a question from the room that obviously goes to you, Teddy. They want to know what was the Basement Boys' inspiration for the New Birth EP in 1999.
That was the early Jasper Street Company stuff. The inspiration was the first song was A Feeling, and we wanted to do more, basically. So we just we wanted to keep the formula going. So basically, the New Birth EP was just another way of keeping the formula going, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Go ahead, Dan.
So, guys, what is the scene like today, pre-COVID and post-COVID?
We're not post-COVID yet, so it's pre-COVID.
We're getting there.
Basically,
it is no scene.
Wait a minute. Basically, that question should be, what is the scene? What was the scene like before COVID? And we're talking like right before, like February, March, right? What was it like then? And what do you think it will be after COVID?
Dead.
I know Atlanta's going crazy. We still partying in Atlanta. I know there's a scene in Vegas, and in LA there's a lot of parties. You just have to be invited because there's no posted flyer. So if you know, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know I've seen on my timeline, I've seen so many parties going on, not only in the U.S., but across the world. I'm like, this Christmas season, you swear this was like New Year's last year. There's so many things going on. I'm thinking to myself, what is going on with these people that they think they can just get together like this?
Well, our team kind of went down for the last couple of years. You know, we lost the Paradox, we lost Red Maple, we lost Get Down, we lost a lot of different venues. So that was happening prior to this whole COVID thing. And I don't know if this city can recover so fast like other cities in terms of like building new clubs and getting the crowd to come back out and things like that. I think that if there's some outdoor events that people might be more comfortable with, the younger generation, they probably would be able to go to a club and be okay. They're okay with doing that. The older clientele, they might not go to the clubs right away. So that's my thought. You know, in Baltimore, first of all, we gotta get some more clubs back in the city, and then try to figure out what audience is going to fill those clubs and everything. But you know, DC is right down the street, so I'm quite sure that people, if they had the need to go out to a party and stuff, they would probably truck down 295 and go to support the venues down there. But we definitely.
All right, great connection. Anybody else want to take that question?
I think eventually the scene is gonna get back, because I know before COVID, even though we lost a lot of clubs, there was a lot of parties going on, and it reminds me of back in the day in Chicago when there used to be a whole bunch of parties going on, but they wouldn't be in clubs. You know, you have parties at the Continental Hotel. You used to have parties at Mendel, which was a high school. Used to have parties at People's Laws. You know, so and that was what was going on in Baltimore. You were having parties at these little bars, quote unquote Jamaican bars, restaurants. On the second floor, you was having parties at the place on the wind up spot, you know, places like that. And so I think eventually, I mean, there's no place in the world where you can go where there's no nightlife. Eventually, there's going to be a nightlife because it's part of, you know, the city making money. Don't nobody want to go to a city that don't have a nightlife, you know. So I think eventually it's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely a division that happened within the scene of the, you know, the rave thing with the dubstep and all of that kind of the really young kids that didn't even get to experience all the different genres. It kind of all was homogenized into that, you know, that American thing that happened for a while there. And the real estate thing happened where the clubs were, you know, big volume boxes, and then they were trying to sell them off to other places. So it is cyclical. I do think that there's been more people making the music than ever before. It's, you know, you've got more people listening to it than ever before. You've got cars driving by and you hear it. So I agree with Brian that like it will be back, and it'll be back strong. There is a bunch of underground spaces that are all little ones, but people that are there thumping it, you know, and loving it. And just like everything else, I think when we come back, everybody's going to work twice as hard because we were lazy before and weren't fighting for it, and now we lost it. And the worst thing you can do is, you know, or the best thing you can do is take something away from somebody. So I think we're going to see a boom, you know, in general when we get the ability to get back together. Everybody is jonesing for that connection, you know, that dance floor moment when that beat kicks back in, and all those things we just took for granted. We haven't had it a year now, and it's like part of my soul is dead. You know, like it has to come back, and it will hardcore, I think, amongst a whole new generation, because everybody's going to be out there trying to teach it, you know, and give the feeling to everybody else. So I think it'll be great. Got to figure out the space element, you know, with the real estate thing that happened. Same thing happened in New York, you know, where they shut everything down and turned it all into different residential and started complaining about the noise and all that stuff. But it'll happen. We'll figure it out.
Okay. Which brings me to a question I've wanted to ask here. Since we went into quarantine and this whole pandemic thing that's happening now, how has that forced us to use technology? And I want to point this one at Chuck, because you're the technology man on this panel.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everything went online. People are streaming more than ever. Everything's virtual. And even, you know, when I first saw it happening, I was a little skeptical. If people would really sit there and watch DJs for hours at a time. And I was just surprised at how this thing just blew up, you know, especially like in March, April, around that time. You know, it kind of tapered off a little bit as we entered the fall, but just how people were willing to just, I mean, they wanted to at least be together virtually, you know, through the chat rooms and things like that. That was a way for them to connect. And I think that's something that's always going to drive. People want to connect, you know, and we just got to be creative, I think. You know, the whole virtual thing was one way of being creative. I think when this is all over, we'll find some creative ways to get together. I think that's something, that's human nature. I don't think we're going to be able to stop that.
All right.
I had a really cool thing happen where I did my first remix digitally through a thing called Splice. I don't know if you guys use it, but we set up a Zoom call with a digital feed, and we're bouncing the track between 3 different cities. and in real time we're working on the same song and did a remix with 3 different people, Miami, Baltimore, and LA, and literally all were working together on the same file, passing it back and forth. And it was probably the coolest thing that I've ever done because it worked. I couldn't believe it. And it turned out well. But I mean, things like that, I think, where now we've got to figure out the bandwidth elements. You've got the ability to pass these files back and forth in real time, and being able to work collaboratively with different people all over the world is something that's going to be a thing. And it's just cool, that happened. I was just like, I don't believe you, this isn't going to work, but I'm in, because I'm sitting at home by myself. But I'd be damned if it didn't work, and it ended up making a great tune, So,
all right, I have a question from the room again from Jay Shee. In your opinion, what makes Baltimore club music distinct? Let's go to Teddy on that one.
What makes club Baltimore? Well, we like it. We like it tough. We like it hard. We like it energized, and I think that's what distinguishes our sound. Even with the Baltimore club sound, which is a little different from it's like what Miami bass, and you put house music together, and you get what Frank Ski would create here in Baltimore, which is equally big here as house music. So I think it's the energy. I think we like it. We like it strong and hard.
All right.
Baltimore's a funky town, man. Everything is syncopated.
Yeah.
Everything's got to have that thump and the bump, or it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's got to be something. Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
Mike isn't on anymore.
Yeah, he is. There he is, right there.
Oh, yeah.
He's back.
Can you repeat the question, because I had a connection issue?
We had a question from the room that said, in your opinion, what makes Baltimore club music distinct?
What makes it extinct?
Distinct.
I think it's for me, extinct. I like Teddy had said, far as the level of energy that.
Can you hear us?
Say it one more time.
Yeah,
I can hear you now. Say it again.
What makes Baltimore club music distinct? How does it stand out from
distinct?
The rest?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And as I was saying, like mimicking what part of what Teddy had said, Baltimore has a distinctive sound that it's almost like they require the best out of their DJs. Not that other cities don't, but you really have to come with your A game when you're playing for Baltimore. And the level of energy that we require from the DJ, it's like we're more like than just DJ.
We're having connection problems over there.
Let's
go. Hold on, Mike. Let's go to DJ Pope on that one.
It's not just.
Go ahead, Pope. Can you hear me?
I'm having connection.
Yep. DJ Pope. You're not working there?
No, you have me muted.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
I had connection issues.
Well, from my experience, coming from Chicago and then being here, like Teddy said, Baltimore has a harder sound, and from my opinion, it's derived from that Chicago. They took that Chicago sound and then they added on to it, because just like you were saying something about how did they do that Crystal Waters thing. If you notice and you listen to their sound, that kick is just like ridiculous, and then they had those chords that Neil came up with. And if you notice on a lot of their music, they it's a formula, and they stay with that formula even though they may add little bitty pieces on top of it, but it still has that Basement Boy formula that no matter where you go, no matter what record you play with whatever record, you know when you hear a Basement Boy record.
Mm-hmm.
It's a signature sound.
Correct.
All right. What else we got, Danny?
Shall we follow up with what the future holds, since Chip kind of entered into that with the Slice comment? What do y'all think the future holds for house music?
In Baltimore.
In Baltimore.
Oh, I think it's here to stay.
I think the future is bright. You know, Teddy and them laid the foundation, and we've come behind them. Speaking of myself, OG, and then you have a storm of young producers, even though they may not be young, but you know, as far as producing, you know, they're producing music. I mean, we've gained a lot of respect in the industry, even though we still don't get the respect that I think we deserve. But we're making so much noise that they're gonna have to hear us.
There you go. I want to veer from this just a little bit because I don't want to be remiss with not including your brother Teddy, DJ Spin, Tommy Davis, the whole crew. Let's talk about them a little bit.
Okay, sure. So what, you got a question for him, or what you want me to do?
No, I just want you heartfelt feelings about them, how you guys have been able to do what you do, how it's, you know, just everything about those two. How do you feel about them? How is it, you know?
Well, basically, like Pope, I want to just piggyback on what Pope just was talking about. Mm-hmm. There's so many people here now making records, which I'm really excited about. There's a lot of producers. Like, I believe in passing the baton. I brought in. We started off with the company with the three of us, Tommy, Jay, and myself, and then we added Spin as a producer with tons of musicians. But then we added Charisma and Maurice Fulton, and I think that, like what Pope said, I think it's bright now. I mean, everybody's doing their own thing here. Spin has Quantized Records with Tommy, and they're doing, like, he's like the #1 dude, and you know, for soulful music, you know, right now in the game. I think everybody's doing their own thing. I'm doing my thing. Everybody's got their own lane. It's you know, we're just, and Pope and OG is doing phenomenal stuff over there. Poji Records. I think it's bright, man. I think I'm really, really happy. You know, what's going on right now. I think it's really, really great. Really great.
Yeah. And one other person I want to talk about who I had asked to be here, but she couldn't make it tonight, and that's my girl Ultra. Who wants to give some comments on her? We got to talk a little bit about her as well.
Yeah, Ultra's never giving up. Ultra's gonna be there forever, man. She's never gonna give up, man. She's relentless.
She has a successful party. She's been traveling the world, you know.
Yeah, she's relentless. I love her. That's my little sister, and
yeah,
you know, we our history goes back to the '80s. So,
she's you know, she's down to earth. You know, I can recall her, me asking her, you know, let me do a record with you. Let me do a record with you, you know. And at one point she was like, she gave me some excuse or something. But then she finally let me produce a record with her. And it went all the way to #2 on the Billboard charts. We got beat out by Beyonce. But then next year, you know, the record got licensed to it was in the movie soundtrack. So, you know, she gave me the opportunity to produce a record for her, and that was a blessing.
Nice.
And Jesse, just to piggyback on just the longevity of Ultra, man. Ultra during this pandemic, I've seen her doing some of the most creative events. She did a party at the drive-in. She's doing these pod parties here in Baltimore. I mean, she's keeping her parties going in the pandemic.
Yeah. What club? Let's talk about her club a little bit before we get out of here too.
Deep Sugar.
Yes.
17.2 or the
You mean her party? Her party?
Yeah, Deep Sugar.
Yeah.
She had like Chuck said, she's keeping that going. I mean, she got Deep Sugar parties, Deep Sugar movie parties.
Yeah, but let's go back a little bit. When did that Deep Sugar thing start? How did she even get into that party scene?
It started at Sonar in 2000. Let's say it's 17 years now, so 2003. In the back room at Sonar is when they started. Lisa and Ultra. They had Tommy play. They had myself, Jerome, who were some of the earlier DJs.
In 2003, I started hearing on radio, Collective Mind started, Sugar, a lot of stuff just coalesced at that time for some reason.
Well, yeah, what was going on in 2003 that made all this happen?
Well, I don't know, but we went out there and started partying.
I feel like 2003, when we look back, 2001 was when the New York event happened and Napster happened, and the record scene, the scene kind of took a really big hit, and records stopped selling and digital really started. And I think it would make sense that 2 years later we kind of got our act together and everybody went for it again. So, looking at history, I think that's probably why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, looks like I was going to say the future is bright. We don't know what the future is going to look like, but at least we know things were happening in Baltimore. I mean, you guys had a live and vibrant scene, and my only worry with all of these cities that we visit is that people keep the spirit alive, because that's what's important, the spirit of house music, and just the feel, because a lot of people I'm seeing, basically the reason why we're seeing like all these parties and stuff online now is people are just getting COVID fatigue. They miss those hugs on the dance floor, even though you shouldn't do that. Let me put a disclaimer: do not hug people on the dance floor. Don't even get within 6 feet of them if you don't have to. But I understand that's what's happening. Is people are just getting this fatigue. They miss the parties, they miss the camaraderie, the love of the music. One person said to me, it's great seeing people on Zoom, but I'm dancing by myself, so that doesn't work too well. And having said that, I think we're going to close this out. It's been a great hour with everybody. So I want to go one by one and have everyone make a closing statement about where you are, if you have anything to plug, and what's happening for Baltimore, what you think or what you got going on for Baltimore in the future. We'll start with Terry Thompson.
Well, I think the future definitely is bright for Baltimore. I mean, this city has kept house music alive since the beginning, and it will continue to do that. I mean, as Teddy said and Pope has said, is that this city has produced a lot of producers. We got a ton of them out there. Everybody from Charles Dawkins, Neil Conway is still producing stuff. There's a ton of producers in the city that's putting out music into the industry. We might not have the club scene as strong as we would like it to be, but somebody's going to come in and they're going to fill that void. They're going to put together a venue that's going to be able to support the need for people to dance. Because I know one thing for sure is that when this COVID stuff is over, everybody's going to hug a stranger. That will happen, and it will happen sooner than later. The other thing is I think that the Baltimore has the opportunity to capitalize on its geographic location. Our proximity to Washington, D.C., to Philadelphia, to New York is making it attractive to have other people come to the city and see what we have to offer. And they heard the stories about the music in the underground. They want to experience that. So we just need to provide them a venue or atmosphere for them to come and see what Baltimore's all about.
All right. We're going to try to go to Mike. Let's see how you feel about things.
Well, I think things are like Teddy and Pope has said, and even Tari, I think the future's bright. Baltimore has so much talent. I mean, I don't know if we're the most talented city there is. I mean, the amount of producers and the quality of music that they're producing and the amount of units that they're putting out. So I think the future is bright. I started a party called Best Say Saga 2.5, 3 years ago. It started strong, it ended strong, and after this pandemic is over, we'll see where where we'll go from there. But I think the future's bright. I mean, this cabin fever, and we have so much bottled up in us right now. So once this is all over, I mean, the producers, the dancers, the DJs, we're just going to release.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, DJ Chuck, what you think?
I mean, I think the future's bright for Baltimore, man. I mean, we got a Grammy nomination. You know, you got Jasper Street just got nominated for Grammy for the Louis Vega remixes. So people know the talent's there. And I think things will open up, man. I honestly, there's some folks who think we may be heading towards almost like a roaring 20s after this stuff is over with. People just going to be partying like crazy. So we'll see where it goes in terms of physically being with each other, because people are yearning for that.
Like it's 1999. What about you, DJ Pope?
Shameless plug. This Thursday on Hands On Radio, I'm going to be doing a House into the New Year with live performances from Cherie Hicks from Chicago, Miss Fly from Canada, Ed Ramsey from Baltimore, and a couple of guest DJs. That's going to be this Thursday night. From
what's the date?
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
It's
2020 going into 21, because this show will be replayed, and you want to make sure people know.
Okay, yeah. So that's going to be the 31st, December the 31st, 8 p.m. on handsonradio.tv, as well as the FM station.
All right. And who do we have? Oh, Chip, you're up next.
I think Baltimore is going to be a town that continues to be scrappy and figures it all out. The producers are deep. The music itself has never been bigger. It used to be strange that these computers were making all this stuff. Now computers run our entire lives, and people relate to it, and new people are coming into the fold every day. So I think once we can get back together, there's going to be a lot of large events that happen once we're allowed to, and then that's going to spawn the need for venues to support, because they'll see, the crowds. So I second everything that everybody said, but Baltimore is a scrappy town that's going to figure it out and make it happen.
All right. And last but certainly not least, Teddy Douglas.
So right before this COVID happened, I threw a party, me and my partner DJ Thompson. Live at the Rockwell. Okay. And we bring in town everybody, all my friends has been there. And the last show we had was Byron Stingley. So we're hoping that we can resume this party after COVID's over. I don't know when that's gonna happen, but we are talking to the owners about how we can resume the party, because the party was unbelievable. We had everybody. I've had Layla Hathaway perform there. We've had everyone. Barbara Tucker, Lady Elma, Don Tolman. So we're hoping that can resume. And I'm just hoping that we can also win the Grammy, because we are Jasper Company and Louis Vega remix of Praying for You is up for Grammy. So I hope we win next month when the Grammys come out.
Much luck, much success. You deserve it. And once again, thank you everyone for participating in this episode of In Their Own Words Live. We visited Baltimore, and it's been an amazing journey. So I want you all to keep in touch. And I also want you to think about, before you write your story for In Their Own Words Volume 2. It's coming, and I want to hear everybody's story so we can outline it and the world can see it. All right?
Okay. All right.
Thank you once again, and this has been great. Thanks to my co-host, Danny. Thank you, Terry, Chip, Mike, Teddy, Chuck.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Let's take care.
Happy New Year.
Peace.
All right, everybody.
Have a good one.